Hey everyone, welcome to today's explainer. We're diving straight into what I can only call a massive paradigm shift in regenerative medicine and advanced hair restoration. For years, the industry has approached hair loss with this very specific, almost brute force mentality. Throwing absolutely everything at the scalp and just hoping something sticks. But what happens when we step back and look at the scalp not as a collection of isolated targets, but as a highly intelligent, interconnected ecosystem? Today, we are unpacking a groundbreaking framework that completely rewires how we understand and treat hair biology.
For the longest time, the whole language around hair restoration has been all about stimulation. We've always heard, let's add more actives, let's make the biological activity louder. But here's the thing, hair follicles don't just sit there waiting for an on switch. They're in this constant, dynamic conversation with cells, the matrix, blood vessels, and immune signals. Honestly, simply throwing more growth factors and peptides at a scalp is like shouting into a crowded room. If everyone is yelling at the exact same time, no one is actually understood. The tissue just gets overwhelmed by all the noise. When we finally realize that biology is truly about organized communication, the whole game changes.
So, here is our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start by busting the myth of isolated stimulation, then move into biology as organized communication. After that, we'll hit the 3 pillars of NEO, talk about bridging the gap between clinic and home care, and wrap up with the future of structured signaling. All right, let's get into it. Starting off with Section 1, the myth of isolated stimulation. We really need to challenge this old school belief about how follicles behave and why that more is always better mindset is fundamentally flawed. Think about the old way versus the new way. The old way is random stimulation. It's treating the scalp like a chaotic sponge where we just dump this giant shopping list of ingredients and cross our fingers that the hair grows. But then we have organized communication. This is a huge shift. It's viewing regenerative medicine as a way to create a coherent conversation within the tissue. It's not about how loud the signal is, it's about making sure the conversation is actually structured and intelligible to the entire biological architecture. Now, you've probably seen this exact phenomenon in your own clinical practice or real-world follow-ups. Picture a patient where you use the exact same serum all over. The crown responds beautifully, but the hairline does absolutely nothing. Why does that happen? Because hair biology isn't just a simple linear input-output machine. It's a network. The outcomes don't just depend on what you put on the scalp, they depend entirely on how those signals are organized, processed, and understood across that complex ecosystem. Which brings us right into Section 2, biology as organized communication. Let's look at how this concept builds into a formal scientific framework. Enter Network Engineered Organization, or NEO for short. This approach literally flips the script. Instead of constantly asking what else can we add, we're asking how is the scalp actually communicating? It occupies this very specific scientific space of structured biological signaling. It's not just simple nourishment, it's a deliberate framework aimed at improving coordination across the whole scalp environment. Basically, it shifts you from just handing out products to being the actual architect of the scalp's ecosystem. To really grasp this, we have to remember that every single follicle is constantly reacting to its neighborhood. It's listening to the cells right next to it, the blood vessels, the immune context. It's a delicate balance. You've got your biological green lights saying grow, build new blood vessels, but at the exact same time, you've got red lights, inflammatory noise, and inhibitory tones. NEO doesn't invent new pathways. It just deliberately organizes these existing green and red signals in space and time so the traffic actually flows. Moving right along to Section 3, the 3 pillars of NEO. Let's break this down to see how we can orchestrate this biology in a practical way. These pillars are all about replacing random guesswork with deliberate design. First up, network. This acknowledges that hair biology is deeply connected. A follicle reads the whole room and interprets the broader pattern, not just one input. Next is engineered. We have to use inputs that are strictly defined and reproducible. We are literally taking chance out of the equation. And finally, organization. The ultimate goal here is a clear, coherent communication architecture across the scalp, getting rid of any conflicting signals. I absolutely love this distinction. It is not louder biology, it is deliberately structured biology. Think about trying to turn up the volume on a radio that's just blasting, screeching static. That's the old way. NEO is about tuning the dial to a crystal clear station. By quieting down the inflammatory noise and the confusing tones at the network level, the hair supportive signals suddenly become so much clearer to the follicle's environment. So, Section 4, bridging clinic and home care.
How do we actually take this high-level biological logic and apply it to a patient's day-to-day routine? Well, this is where biomimetic peptides are an absolute game changer. They aren't just random actives thrown into a bottle, they are precise tools chosen to participate in a larger communication architecture. Because they echo the body's own natural language, they act like perfect molecular keys, fitting seamlessly into existing locks. Combine those with well-characterized, plant-derived sources for extra comfort, and you've got inputs that actively make the biological message clearer. And this dynamic right here shows exactly how we bridge the clinic and the bathroom sink. In-clinic treatments like injections are high intensity. Think of them like massive software updates that fundamentally reshape the network. But your home care routine, the shampoos, serums, oral nutraceuticals, those provide the lower intensity daily maintenance signals. They make sure that the exact same communication pattern keeps flowing perfectly between clinic visits. This is absolutely crucial because it solves that classic problem where patients lose their hard-won clinical gains simply because their at-home care was just cosmetic fluff. Under the NEO framework, daily maintenance completely stops being a supporting actor. It becomes the critical continuity layer. If you want genuine, long-term regeneration, both the clinic treatments and the home care must speak the exact same underlying signaling language. Which brings us to our final part, Section 5, the future of structured signaling. Let's look at how this vision reshapes the entire landscape of regenerative aesthetics. Look, products change, fads come and go, but the NEO framework sits above all that to provide a permanent foundation. It's a scientific philosophy that will outlive any single formulation. It's strategically brilliant because it acts as an anchor for the whole ecosystem. As we learn more about biology, the framework evolves, but it always insists on one thing. Every single protocol component has to follow one unified communication map. Think of it literally like a massive symphony orchestra. Adding isolated actives, that's just tuning the individual instruments. But network-engineered organization provides the actual structural musical score. It tells every instrument exactly how and when to play. Because tuning alone doesn't create beautiful music. You need a deliberate sequence and a logic for the tissue to truly understand, repeat, and regenerate over time. So I want to leave you with this to ponder as you map out your next protocol. Are you going to keep relying on isolated stimulation, or are you ready to design a truly organized signaling environment? The future of advanced hair restoration belongs to the architects, not the people just trying to turn up the volume. Thanks so much for joining me for today's explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and I'll catch you on the next one.